Meeting for November 25th, 2014. As is our custom, we will be presenting the invocation and the pledge prior to calling the meeting officially to order. Today's invocation will be presented by David Holmes from First Church of Christ of Scientists on Old Sewell Mill Road, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Sergeant Tom Lerner, who has been employed with Cobb Police for 26 and a half years and is assigned to the STEP unit. Sergeant will be assisted by Will Stevens, who is a Boy Scout. And what troop is that, buddy? 277 out of First Marietta United Methodist Church, correct? We're glad you're here. For those that wish to do so, please stand for the invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee, and everyone here. I'd like to express gratitude, being this week of Thanksgiving, for all the good that will come from this meeting, from everybody. The subject of tonight's invocation is gratitude and Thanksgiving, and our nation is steeped in gratitude going all the way back to 1621. Of course, we all know from being school age on up that it was the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag Indians that sat down and gave thanks. It was in August, and it was a 3-day affair. That we didn't know. We zoomed forward to George Washington, who established, not like Lincoln did, but a day of Thanksgiving in 1789, his first Thanksgiving as president, in November 26th. And he said this. He said, "The service of that great and glorious being, who is the beneficent author of all the good that was, that is, or that will be." And friends, that's the best sentence on Thanksgiving I've ever seen. We go up to Lincoln, who in the middle of the Civil War in 1863, thinking of both this nation, looking down the road from the battlefield and from the impossible politics, to a nation, to the human heart that had a need to give thanks to an all-loving creator. And he established the Thanksgiving Day as we know it now, 151 years later. What I'd like to do, I'd like to read a passage from Malachi in the Old Testament. And let me tell you, Malachi is not a guy you'd like to bring to a party. He was a real grumpy kind of a prophet. He wrote a lot he ranted and raved quite a bit. But as if God had touched him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, wait a minute, slow down. This is what I want you to write." And he wrote this wonderful passage, and we get a glimpse into the heart of God, who wants to give us all the blessings we can possibly have. He said this, "Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, said the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." That's from our Heavenly Father. Let's have a few moments of silent prayer for our loved ones and our family, and also for our first responders who put their lives on the line every day, and to our loved ones overseas in the military who are serving this nation so valiantly. And then after the silent prayer, I'll give a benediction, and that's it. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thank you, Sergeant, and thank you, Mr. Stevens. We'll now call this meeting officially to order. Earlier today, at our work session, we had presented to us the items under tab 1 and tab 2. Tonight, we begin with tab 3, presentations. There is one. The second presentation is printed, will be pulled for later agenda. To recognize Mr. Dawkins, Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Dawkins, and is anyone else coming up with you from Caduceus? Whoever's coming up, come on up. You know how that works. I'm just going to read the proclamation here, and then we'll let you tell folks a little bit about Caduceus. Dr. Stephen A. Dawkins is the medical director of Caduceus Occupational Medicine, which is the second largest provider of occupational medicine services in Georgia. The company was founded in 1999 and now has 12 locations. And Caduceus staff has broad experience working with private employers of all sizes in local, state, and federal government in a comprehensive, cost-effective, and progressive manner. For more than 18 years, the health professionals have partnered with business, industry, and government to provide drug screens, physical examinations, injury and illness treatment, and rehabilitation services. And Caduceus represents the fourth generation occupational medicine practice of Dr. Dawkins. In 1990, Occupational Health Atlanta was founded and began with MARTA as its founding client, growing to serve more than 700 employers. In 1993, Dr. Dawkins founded Occupational Health International, which was awarded the MARTA contract and grew to serve more than 1,400 employers in 3 locations. And in 1996, Dr. Dawkins began hospital occupational medicine to provide consultative expertise in the field. The company served about 100 hospitals throughout the nation, and in 1997, he acquired a healthcare software company that provided applications to multinational clients and sold it in 1999. Now we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby honor Dr. Stephen A. Dawkins for his business acumen and many contributions to the field of occupational medicine. He and Caduceus Occupational Medicine staff should be proud of the tremendous impact they have made and will continue to make on our community. Signed this 25th day of November. Why don't you introduce your lovely wife, and then you can tell folks about Caduceus.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Rock. First of all, thank you, sir. This is my wife, Arnika, who has been gracious enough to be with me since my second year of medical school. And she's seen, she famously says that when I was in medical school, it gets easier when I'm in residency. It didn't. When I was in residency, she said it gets easier when I'm in practice, and it didn't then either. But she's still stuck with me all these times. We're delighted to be a part of the community. As I was mentioning to the chairman, my wife bought a condo for us when I was in medical school off of Spring Road that we still own. So we've been a part of Cobb County for many, many years. We're delighted to be here in our new office right by the Marietta Diner. And we've done a number of things in the community. We are happy to take care of the county employees to keep fire, police, and everyone safe. As you know, we've been, we served as also, I was the medical director for the Olympics when it came. We were the medical directors for the construction of the World Congress Center when it went up, and are happy to be a part of the new effort down at 75 and Spring Road. So we're happy to be a part of that effort too. We're the medical directors for that job too. We're happy to be a part of the community, and thank you for the recognition. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Thank you. It'll take us to tab 4, the SunTrust Park Stadium update. Mr. Hankerson.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board of Commissioners. I want to do an update on SunTrust Park. I don't know if I got 2 assistants with me today that's going to take part in the presentation, but I'm going to start out with 2 slides. One of them is the business outreach. I think that was one held in Commissioner Cooper's district at the Epic Center. The second one was planned, which will be at the Senior Wellness Center. We had looked at having it in this facility, but after the one in South Cobb, we determined that the space was not adequate. So we're moving it to Wellness Center, which is on December the 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m., where American Builders and others will reach out. I think the next round of procurement and proposals or bids will go out. So it's timing to work with that. Go to the next slide. Then there's going to be a stadium open house here in this room, which we have representatives from the various county departments, sort of like a town hall, but we'll also have Braves representative, community development, public safety, and others that's involved with this project. So it would be a good opportunity to get a lot of questions answered from DOT, finance, and we have a lot of staff here in a very open house type concept. So, and with that, some of the presentations on the update of the stadium, I'm going to ask Mr. Glenn Jardine from HERI, who is our project manager for the county, to come up and give part of the presentation. And then I'm going to ask Public Safety Director Sam Heaton to come up and talk about what he's been doing to address the issues of security and safety and working with the Braves organization a bit quick. And then we'll field questions with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening again. Glenn Jardine, Senior Vice President. I'm your project executive for the owner's rep role. We've been on board about 2 months now, so it's probably time to give you guys a report. I'm happy to say we've been very busy for the last 2 months. We're fully mobilized, and more importantly, we are fully integrated into the design and construction team. The Braves, Jones & Lang LaSalle, American Builders, everybody sees us as a partner, and we're there representing the county. So the county has a seat at every meeting. We're at the weekly OAC meetings, that's owner, architect, contractor meetings. Those are half-day meetings. They will soon be expanded into an all-day meeting as the construction picks up. So we're representing the county. We're submitting reports immediately after that to Mr. Hankerson and his team. We're invited to other meetings related to budget and schedule as far as the county's obligations. And again, we're turning around reports very quickly. In the 2 months that we've been on board, we've done a very thorough review of all the documents, the contracts, the memos of understanding, the programs, the design documents, the plans and specs. So we've done a very thorough review, and again, with an eye towards making sure the county's obligations are all met and that the team is fulfilling everything in the contract. I'm happy to report that after 2 months, all the work on site and all the information flow, the documents, the payment applications, all the contracts, everything is flowing properly and in accordance with all the memos and the contracts. So we're very happy. I think things are moving very smoothly as it comes to paperwork and all the contractual requirements. Let's go to the next slide. As far as the work that's been completed and what is coming up, the gas line work, I think you know that. That's outside the footprint. That's working well. That work is complete. The mass grading is underway on the site, so if you drive by there, you're going to see an awful lot of activity. The foundation contract was awarded about 2 weeks ago, and that contractor is fully mobilized, so you're going to see activity on the site really picking up. One of the big milestones we're working towards now as a team is the GMP documents. That's the guaranteed maximum price. Those documents should be finished in late December, and as a team, we're working towards finalizing the GMP late February, early March. And I would tell you, based on our perspective, everything on the design and construction side is moving as we would have planned and expect. So everything is working very fine there. The trailers are starting to mobilize on site, and it looks like we, the owner's rep, the county's rep, will be on site in 2 to 3 weeks after the trailer park is finished. So from my perspective, things are going well. I should have said earlier, the team is very collaborative and very collegial. So once we came on board, it's been a very, very smooth process. So happy to report that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Heaton.
Good evening, Chairman and Board of Commissioners. Give you a quick update on what we've been doing with DPS and the Atlanta Braves. When I say DPS, it's not just Cobb County Fire, Cobb County Police, and Cobb County 911, but we also have Cobb County Sheriff's Office and Smyrna Police Department that we've been working with along with the Braves. Since March of this year, we've been meeting on a regular basis with the Braves security, talking about their safety concerns and the way they operate at the current stadium. And we've done this both while events were occurring at the stadium and also while events were not occurring at the stadium. There's been several meetings with the Brave security to discuss the SunTrust Park security and what that might look like. And we've most recently reviewed the plans, particularly with the fire department, but also with law enforcement, of the preliminary plans of what the stadium security might look like for the stadium itself, and then also for the park around the stadium area. I can tell you that I've been impressed with the Braves security, their professionalism, their experience, their knowledge with security in and around Braves and the stadium. And I can tell you it's truly been eye-opening to see the work that they do each day at the current stadium. In the same light, I think they've been impressed with many of the things that we've done. For example, when we had the ribbon cutting for the stadium, it was a big task that law enforcement pulled off and did an incredible job. There's been some suggestion that it's going to take hundreds of firefighters and police officers to secure that area, and at this point I disagree with that. Fire station number 29, which has been in the plan since 2006, and it was planned for the Cumberland Galleria area based on the anticipated growth for that area. Fire station 29 is in the SPLOST, and we are currently working with Commissioner Ott and others in the area to try to identify some property that would be a good location for Fire Station 29. It most likely will not be in that complex, but it will be in the Cumberland Galleria area as it was anticipated in 2006. For law enforcement officers, the majority of the officers, the primary on-duty responsibilities will most likely be traffic control around the area. Most of the security in the stadium and the park area will most likely be personnel, off-duty personnel hired by the Braves security system. We're working with the Braves, and also as this thing is being developed, the site for a possible public safety station, if you will, for lack of a better word, but a location where we can muster personnel when events are going on, and possibly even staff that location depending on what the security issues are going to be looking like. But I don't see that being hundreds of officers. I see that being more between the 10 to 20 officers right now. Over the next year, we plan to continue to meet with the Braves. We have events scheduled for our opening day for the current stadium, and also larger events such as 4th of July, and events that do not necessarily include ball playing, so we can see how they manage that on a day-to-day basis and what their expectations may be when they come here. We will also be working to identify more specifically the number of officers that may be needed as we start to identify parking and traffic locations around the stadium area, and then identifying needs that we might want to address, such as another K-9 unit for bomb detection, bike teams, or undercover personnel that may work in that area. Keep in mind that what we're doing for this site is no different than what we do for any other large growth site, whether it be a college, a new mall, or anything else that's going to be a development where large amounts of people may be coming. We're always going to look at that and try to anticipate the needs and be ready for it. So with that.
Thank you.
With that, Board of Commissioners will entertain any and all questions. Hopefully we will have an answer. If not, we'll get one and get back with you.
Thank you, Mr. Hankerson. Any questions or comments for the board or for Mr. Hankerson? Mr. Cupid?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to share that I appreciate the update. I know at my last town hall meeting, we had some people make some inquiry with respect to public safety, and I appreciate your feedback and letting us know what the plans are come 2017. Also, thank you here for also being here.
It's
And Commissioner,
2017.
We were able to, based on what you updated me on that town hall meeting,
Yeah.
it assisted us in driving our agenda today.
So
Thank you.
2017,
Yes,
right? It's 2 years away.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 856 days. So we got a little time to get these details worked out, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll take us to tab 5. We have 2 items. The first is to conduct a public hearing to consider the creation and designation of the Austell Powder Springs Enterprise Zone. Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dana Johnson with Cobb County Community Development, and I am here to ask you to consider opening a public hearing for the creation and designation of the Austell Powder Springs Enterprise Zone. As a brief bit of background, this particular enterprise zone meets 4 out of the 5 criteria required by state law and local code for consideration for an enterprise zone. So we meet all of the particular requirements as it relates to poverty, unemployment, underdevelopment, and deterioration. This is a partnership This is a partnership between the City of Powder Springs, the City of Austell, and Cobb County. To be quite honest with you, this will benefit the cities as much or more than it will for the area of unincorporated county along Austell Powder Springs Road, but we're thrilled to be able to partner with our two cities and help try to make everybody viable and competitive in today's market. So with that, sir, I'd ask you to consider opening the public hearing and receiving comments on this matter.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing for this item. Anyone wishing to speak for or against or has a comment regarding this particular item, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. I believe, Mr. Johnson, the next issue is adopt a resolution
That is-
creating and designating Austell Powder Springs Enterprise Zone and
That is correct,
authorizing-
sir, and authorizing you to execute all necessary documents as it relates to this matter.
Thank you. Commissioner Cupid, would you like to present a motion?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Chairman. Before I do that, I want to thank you, Dana, and your team for your efforts to work with both cities in creating this district. Certainly as the cities go, the district goes too, as there are significant parts of it. And it's nice to see that they also can take advantage of this tool that's been available to us in unincorporated Cobb. With that, I'd like to make a motion for us to adopt the resolution to create and designate the Austell Powder Springs Enterprise Zone.
Second.
And authorize the chairman to execute necessary documents.
That too.
And then second's fine with that. Any comments or question? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. We thank you, and we thank the city of Austell and Powder Springs for their cooperation. It continues to grow our relationship with the city. Thank you. Tab 2 is to conduct a public hearing and consider a comprehensive plan and future land use map for the Northwest Cobb land vulnerability analysis. Dana.
Yes, sir. As a bit of background again, this past summer, the Board of Commissioners approved the Northwest Land Vulnerability Analysis. As part of that particular study document, there were a number of land use changes that were recommended that were proffered forward through the study that handled and dealt with some of the changing conditions in this area as it relates to environmental protection, water and sewer availability, and transportation in this particular area of Cobb County. The Planning Commission made recommendations on November 4th regarding these, and as I bring forward each one of these items, I will be letting you know what the recommendations of the Planning Commission were at the same time. This is a public hearing, so at the conclusion of reading all of the proposals, I'll ask if you could please hold a public hearing to receive comments as it relates to all of these proposals brought forward today. And I think I just did that, so I'm not going to repeat myself with your background again, sir. So starting with CP1. CP1 is Highway 41 near the intersection of 3rd Army Road and Black Acre Trail. It is currently in the industrial compatible and rural residential. This recommendation is to go into the neighborhood activity center category with the text amendment. If I may read into the record the text amendment that's been recommended through the Planning Commission. In recognition of the existing and changing conditions influencing the area surrounding the intersection of 3rd Army Road and Cobb Parkway, the Board of Commissioners have established a neighborhood activity center as mapped in Appendix 25. This particular NAC encourages retail and office uses. In addition, if a proposed I-75 and 3rd Army Road interchange is built, this NAC would consider hospitality-type uses. Additionally, because of the environmentally sensitive nature of this area and the proximity of Lake Allatoona, it will be important for the county to take careful stormwater runoff considerations of all future uses, especially on the east side of Highway 41. The Neighborhood Activity Center east of Highway 41 will be encouraged to utilize an environmentally low-impact development approach that may include wet ponds, biofiltration ponds, vegetative swales, xeriscaping bioswales, rain gardens, re-irrigation ponds, rainwater harvesting, and sedimentation filtration ponds, in addition to the required stormwater management facilities. The Board of Commissioners will also encourage shared stormwater retention when possible. And for information, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this 4-0 with one member absent. CP2 is on the west side of Highway 41 between Black Acre Trail and Cedar Crest Road. The existing category is industrial compatible. This recommendation is to go to Neighborhood Activity Center, and the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this item 4-0. CP3 is on the west side of Highway 41, just north of Cedar Crest Road. It is existing in the industrial compatible and rural residential category, and this particular recommendation is to go to the Neighborhood Activity Center and low density residential category with a text amendment which is as follows. In an effort to provide an adequate transition and buffering for the commercial uses along Cobb Parkway, the property designation as low density residential on the future land use map and located at the rear of the commercial use on the west side of Cobb Parkway in land lot 37 of the 20th District is to be considered for non-supportive senior living type development as long as direct access to Cobb Parkway and interparcel access to adjacent retail and office uses can be achieved. This was recommended for approval 4-0 by the Planning Commission. CP4 is the south of Cedar Crest Road, west of Ackworth Dallas Road. It is Neighborhood Activity Center and rural residential currently. The recommendation is to go to Neighborhood Activity Center with a text amendment, and there were no changes to this text amendment as brought forward. This was recommended for approval 4-0. On CP5, this is on the east of Highway 41 between Cedar Crest Road and Dallas Ackworth Highway. It is existing in rural residential. This recommendation is to go to very low density residential. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission 4-0. CP6 is at the corner of Dallas Road and Dallas Ackworth Highway. It is currently in the Community Activity Center and rural residential category. This proposal is to go to Neighborhood Activity Center. This was approved by the recommended for approval by the Planning Commission 4-0. CP7 is along the west side of Highway 41 near the intersection of North Shores Road. This is currently in the Neighborhood Activity Center and rural residential. This recommendation was to go to the Park, Recreation, and Conservation. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission 4-0. CP8 is on the east side of Highway 41 in land lot 2 and 37 of the 20th District. It's in industrial compatible and rural residential. This was recommended for Neighborhood Activity Center. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this 4-0, but they did recommend an alteration to the text amendment, which I'll read into the record. In recognition of the existing and changing conditions influencing the area surrounding the intersection of 3rd Army Road and Cobb Parkway, the Board of Commissioners have established a Neighborhood Activity Center as mapped in Appendix 26. This particular NAC encourages retail and office uses. If a proposed I-75 and 3rd Army Road interchange is built, this NAC would consider hospitality-type uses. In order to establish water quality control measures due to the environmental sensitive nature of this area and the proximity to Lake Allatoona, it will be important for the county to scrutinize uses as it relates to stormwater runoff and sewer capacity limits along the east side of Highway 41. Because runoff drains towards Lake Allatoona, new developments will be encouraged to utilize low-impact development standards that may include wet ponds, biofiltration ponds, vegetative swales, xeriscaping bioswales, rain gardens, re-irrigation ponds, rainwater harvesting, and sedimentation filtration ponds, in addition to the required stormwater management facilities. The Board of Commissioners will also encourage shared stormwater retention when possible, as well as interparcel access connectivity. It is important to note that sewer capacity will be limited due to the intergovernmental agreement, wastewater agreement, that Cobb County has with Paulding County. And again, Planning Commission recommended approval 4-0. CP9 is on the east side of Highway 41 north of Autry Church Road. It is existing in industrial compatible and rural residential. This is recommended to be in a Neighborhood Activity Center. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission 4-0. CP10, the east side of Highway 41, south of Old Ackworth Dallas Highway, west of Mason Road and Old Gorgon Road, is currently in the rural residential. This recommendation is to go to PRC with a text amendment, and this was recommended for withdrawal from consideration due to property negotiations for purchase of this particular property. And lastly, CP 11, A through J, are a scattering of different uses throughout this particular area that are all recommended for public institutional because they are either churches, schools, or other types of public gathering spaces. That was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission 4-0. That is the conclusion of the reading of the comprehensive plan changes. And Mr. Chairman, would recommend you to hold a public hearing before making consideration of these items.
Thank you very much. We will now open up the public hearing for this agenda item. If anyone wishes to come speak for or against or comment on the item, this is your time to do so. Each speaker has how long, Ms. David? 3 minutes. If you have a specific CP number item that you wish to speak about, please, if you could, identify that so that we may follow along with your comments. Anybody wishing to come forward, please come forward at this time. Sir, could you mind taking your hat off, please?
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say thanks for giving me your attention. So I was sitting here, I've lived in Ackworth all my life for 42 years. This has been my home since I've known home. And as I look through here, I see that it looks like there's a lot of issues going on there that I object to. And I know a lot of my neighbors do too. Basically, what this community is about is lots. It's about Allatoona. It's about preserving nature. You know, you go to our home or my home, my neighborhood, right here in the corner, it's large lots, large neighborhoods. You know, we got trees there. We've got Allatoona Lake. That's what our community is about. That's what we've been built on. You know, that's what I grew up on. That's what everybody grew up on there, preserving nature. You know, it is about Allatoona Lake. Lake Ackworth is there. Allatoona is there. When all these developments come on, basically it looks to me like they're going to wipe it all out and just concrete it up and build all kinds of stuff there. You know, we've got all kinds of issues there already now. Not to mention traffic. You know, I see a lot of these houses are going to. Looks like they could pop up, particularly CP5 as you requested. You know, what's that going to do to our traffic? I live in a neighborhood of 200 houses right there on that road, right beside it. We have 1,700 people coming in and out that neighborhood every day on average. Cobb County recently done a test on that, and you probably have records that indicate that as well. You know, not to mention what the new housing in the CP5 zone, I think CP4 and all the other ones are going to do to our education. You know, the teacher to student education and ratio is going to diminish. You know, we're going to have classrooms more packed. I don't see anything about building another school to entertain all the houses that y'all are looking at adding on. So, you know, that's another concern of mine as well. I'd like for y'all to consider that too. You know, not to mention when all this construction starts, well, where's that water going to go? It's going to find its way to Lake Allatoona. No matter what they do, it will be there. You know, when they start going up to develop this land, they're going to wipe out all the trees, you know, especially on these small half-acre lots they're looking at building houses on, 50 houses, 100 houses. You know, they're going to be like cookie-cutter houses sitting in what people have grown to know in Lake Ackworth and Allatoona as land that has preserved its history, it's preserved its nature. So, you know, I'd like for y'all to consider that, and I object to a lot of these rezoning, particularly CP5.
Thank you, sir.
Nathan Bowen.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Bill Griffin. I live off over in Ackworth, have for a number of years, much like Nathan Bowen. Our schools, whenever we go get ready to pull out of our subdivision, we wait 15 minutes sometimes to exit our subdivision. The CPs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 all directly affect our traffic in our area. The traffic is just unbelievable. It is beyond terrible. Our house is our retirement. We don't have a lot of the 401ks like a lot of other people are honored to. But I mean, our house will be paid off here in a number of years. We would like to sell it, and with the smaller houses coming in, I see our property values dropping. They're going to take a nosedive. How's that supposed to benefit me? It may benefit some developer, but it's not going to benefit me. The smaller lots and stuff, there's no way that these houses are going to run the same cost as what ours do. Before any of these CP deals are set up for, the roads need to be taken care of. They need to be widened. They need to add sewer systems in and stuff like this prior to. Don't let it be like the stadium and stuff. I mean, we don't even know what the stadium's final cost is going to be. We may have an idea, but it isn't written down. Don't wait. Do this, please. The schools right now are already pretty much crowded enough. I mean, build a new school. What's the first thing they do? They move temporaries in. If they don't have enough rooms for the students, the school systems are going down as well. We work real hard. We try to do what the right thing is. We don't want to encroach on anybody else. We don't want them encroaching on us. All we want to do is just make a medial living, live in our little cookie cutter house, as Nate said, get it paid for. But I don't understand where a lot of the traffic stuff is going to be resolved by adding more businesses, by adding more houses, especially more schools. I mean, 10 years ago, we couldn't get a pizza delivered to our house. I mean, we were too far out. Long story short, they know us by name now. We call them up. We don't even have to tell them what we want. They bring it right off over to us. Would like to thank you guys very much for your time and for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Judy Creasy, and I'm pretty much going to say what these guys said. I live in Pickett's Plantation. We've seen 3 new schools go in on 92 in the past couple of years. It has increased the traffic dramatically. Then they put in more subdivisions over and over and over again. And you cannot get out. They need to address, if they want to build more, they need to address the traffic issues, because it is a legitimate issue. The traffic is horrible. In the middle of the day, you can get out. But in the morning and in the evening, rush hours, it turned from where, like he said, I couldn't get a pizza delivered because I lived in the sticks, to now I can't get a pizza delivered because it'll take too long, it'll come cold. You know, so honestly, this issue needs to be addressed. And all the way 41 up to 3rd Army, Cedar Crest, and 92, that whole area has been inundated with developments in the past 10 years. Schools, housing, everything. And nobody's looking at what happens to the people who are living there, who are already living there. You know, I feel like we're kind of being crowded out of our own neighborhood. So that, anyway, it just needs, if you would all address the traffic issue before you consider more building, that would be my preferred choice before you decide to do this. So, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other speakers?
Mr. Chairman and the board, might I make a comment before I start my public comment?
It's all within your 3 minutes, so you can say what you like.
Well, there are a number of people who could not attend tonight, and because you've collectively put all the CPs together for just a 3-minute comment, I do have comments from various neighbors on 1, 3, 4, 8, and 9, and I hope I could get it in 3 minutes, but if not, if I could have, you know, it's just very short comment. Regarding CP1, we do not believe that hospitality use is appropriate in this area of the Lake Allatoona corridor. For CP3, we do believe that LDR is too intense. The current land use of rural residential for the existing trailer park, we do not believe should exceed a VLDR. We would prefer it stay RR. And neighborhood has already addressed CP5. CP8, there were property owners that were in opposition and asked for a withdrawal in this particular instance. It does not help the property owner by extending hospitality services on the east side of Cobb Parkway all the way to the VFW. That does not address the issues that the property owners in CP8 had. Furthermore, if you're talking about extending the text from CP1 all the way there, I mean, what's the point of lake protection? It will not exist if you allow that hospitality service to be extended to that degree. CP9, I believe, in my opinion, and I am the adjacent neighbor, this is a phased project, Z164, when it was approved. Phase 2 may never be built. It's a very good possibility that it will not be, and even if it is, it cannot begin construction until 2019. I had requested of the Planning Commission that only the portion that is currently developed have the land use change now and waiting to see what happens later. And I will be quite blunt. I believe that Mr. Hovey made some comments that were unprofessional regarding my past litigations with the county, and I do not think that that should play a role in my request that we look at this appropriately. And I do have an open letter from the Lake Allatoona neighborhoods, which I'll address in public comment. Thank you very much.
What's her
Thank
name?
you.
She didn't provide her name.
You know who she is, right? Yeah. Any other speakers?
I'm James Craig, and I'm addressing CP10. The Planning Board recommended withdrawal, and I would like to affirm that. My portion of the property, 12 acres, is currently on the market for sale at $95,000 an acre. Should this had been gone through, it would adversely affect the value and the possible sale of the property. It's had considerable interest in the property, including an offer on the table now that's being considered. So again, I'd like to have that withdrawal affirmed on CP10. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner Gorman, would you lead our conversation, please?
Actually, Dana, did you want to make any comments before I make my comments for the board?
You heard a lot of very good comments from the community, and we've heard many of these comments throughout the process as we went through the couple-year study that was undertaken to put this particular program together. Two things I would bring to the board's attention. One of them deals with Highway 92. I think we are aware of two major transportation projects that we are actively trying to complete. One of them being the Third Army Road interchange, the other being a widening of Highway 92. The county and city of Ackworth both have money that we are ready to dedicate to that particular transportation initiative. We are waiting on state funding for that because Highway 92 goes beyond Cobb County. It goes into our surrounding jurisdictions. So we are waiting on additional funding for the other portions of that so we can assist the state with the money that we have already dedicated to that. In regard to CP5, we heard a lot of really excellent comments from the community with their concerns for the property values as well as drainage and protection of the lake. One thing to note, in that area of CP5, that area, Cobb Parkway is a ridge. Everything to the east of Cobb Parkway drains directly into Lake Allatoona. everything on the west of Cobb Parkway drains towards Paulding County. So that area of CP5, all of that area is part of an intergovernmental agreement that we have with Paulding County, where that water drains into Pumpkin Vine Creek, which is then treated by Paulding County. The main area that would be impacted by that is this particular CP would be the undeveloped land in this area. We are recommending VLDR because the existing subdivisions that are there now currently are all in the very low density residential density range, and that's why this recommendation is being done, so that other property owners who are under the same conditions would be able to have the same considerations as the existing property owners that are living there now. So with this, we think that the environmental concerns can be mitigated through sewer capacity that a private individual would need to build in order to develop those particular properties, as well as considering the existing densities in that particular area.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you, Dana, and your staff for working on this plan here. And the reason that I requested that staff take a look at this area, this is an area that has a lot of pre-existing conditions and also is set up in the future for development either north of it or east of it taking place and having effect on this particular area. I wanted to be in front of the curve there, planning and having plans in place that would protect the lake, that would protect the existing landowners, that would protect the nature and the character of the area as best as we can. It's a challenged area because it's part of our water source. It's a challenged area because sewer is limited. It's a challenged area because of topography. It's a challenged area because of traffic, all of those. And I thought it would be prudent that we put into place these changes that I think will be most beneficial for the area for the future. We are looking at Lake Point, which is only beginning to come out of the ground at this point, which is going to have a huge effect on the surrounding area. And the hope was to plan for those scenarios that would take place. There is a very good possibility that there will be a new interstate exchange at 3rd Army Road. Many benefits to that, as we know that Paulding County has no access to the interstates, and we experience not only north but south of our county with Paulding County traffic cutting through Cobb County to get to the interstate. So there is much wisdom in looking at that 3rd Army Road, but we also should plan for the possibility that that will take place. And therefore, that was part of the reason for this study here. Again, to preserve the lake as best as we can. And thank you for clarifying that those properties to the west of 41 drain to the west. They do not come to the other side. Those properties on the east drain to the lake. And we have put into text the proper approach, we feel, to stormwater detention, retention, and usage as a bioretention field as best as we can. This area has a lot of old zonings and a lot of old land classifications, mainly the industrial compatible that we have throughout this area. And staff put together their collective heads to see that it was impractical to go ahead with those industrial compatible land uses in these areas. And so you see in these requested changes the direction that we've gone that we thought would be the best for the area, the best for the landowners, and the most positive for this area. So we've dealt with a lot of pre-existing conditions. We are dealing with a lot of forecasted conditions. And I think it would be very wrong of this county to stick our head in the sand and not to go forward with this plan that we have now in place that is going to afford the protections
that this plan was developed to provide to the citizens of Cobb County. We by no means are making changes that is saying come one, come all. We're preparing for that. People are moving into Cobb County. They are looking for the existing land that's there. We are going to be faced with an increased population in Cobb County, and I think it's very prudent of us to be prepared for that scenario, which this package does prepare us for. With that being said, and if it's an appropriate time in which to do this, I would make a motion to this board that we approve CP1, CP2, CP3, CP4, CP5, CP6, CP7, CP8, CP9, delete, withdraw CP10, and approve CP11.
I'll second the motion. Is there any comments? Yes, Ms. Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, I do have some questions. There are a couple of concerns that were brought up from some of the speakers that I was hoping that you can address, and may have very well been addressed in the study of the area, but just hoping that you can communicate those things publicly. One of them was with respect to the schools, and another one was with respect to preservation of the rural character of the area. How would those things be considered as this moves forward?
I think regarding the rural character, none of the land uses that are being proposed in these are land uses that are going to be the same type of lot development as I'll say in my neighborhood in the East Cobb area with that small of a lot. The very low density residential is still a rather large lot. So it is keeping the rural character. I think the preservation of the lake and the ability to ensure that our natural resources are maintained, especially since it's a drinking water resource, is another major factor in trying to mitigate those issues.
Okay, and the school that was brought up?
I understand the concern as it relates to school. I am not able to address the school issue since that is something that the Board of Education is the arbiter on.
We typically consider those when we have zoning hearings, so I assume as we had...
We do an analysis, but it's up to the school board to follow up on the information that we provide them, check our land use plan, look at our zonings, and plan for the future. And I know that was brought up in several of our cases. However, that is a school board issue. And if they're not going to utilize the information that we use for pre-planning, I don't know how this board is charged with taking that situation in our hands.
So that would be a BOE issue
Yes.
to determine, not
Yeah.
for this board.
In actuality, this is taking a step, this is preparing better material and better planning information for the school board as they prepare for the future by bringing into compliance, or not being in compliance, but taking into consideration real life, real circumstances that exist today and planning more acutely for what's existing there. So I think this is actually helping the school board by providing better material and information for them in their long-term planning.
It gives them a time frame in which to
Yeah.
work. I mean, we don't have, certain parcels under contract here, but this allows the school board to plan when they see a plan such as this and prepare for the future.
If I could add to that as well, I think in a particular CP5 area I'll concentrate on, because that's the area that is the most residential out of all of the ones that are being considered here. If a zoning were to come forward right now in that area, adjacent with the densities in the area, it will be difficult for the board to maintain the rural residential given the existing land use rights in the previous decisions of the boards that have been in that. So in us recognizing that and considering something that is more focused on people's property rights as it is on community character, we're giving direction to the school board and assisting them in their long-term planning as well.
Sure, Bob.
Just looking at the education report, since that's what Commissioner Cupid asked, with the exception of CP1 and CP5, each of these is moving from a residential land use designation to a commercial. So in essence, you're actually addressing the school issue because you're saying we don't want these to become residential neighborhoods. We don't want them to contribute to the schools. Now, I understand that the folks in opposition talked about some other things, but purely from the question about impact on the schools, CP1 and CP5 are the only ones that are changing the land use designation from VLDR to LDR or from rural residential. Each of the other ones are actually removing a residential land use designation.
So a lot of
That's
thought's been
clear.
put into this over the last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Dana. Good work. As Commissioner Gorham said, in the last 2 years of working to get this done. The next tab is tab 6, public hearing, public comment.
The first speaker is Ron Siphon, if you come forward.
You're gonna miss this.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Ron Siphon. I've previously discussed many reasons why BRT is the wrong answer for Cobb County. I'm not going to rehash those issues right now, although I'd be happy to meet with any of you to discuss these issues. I am a transit supporter. I serve on the CCT Advisory Board. I'm also Commissioner Ott stakeholder representative to the Cobb Comprehensive Transportation Plan. The stakeholder committee met last week and the discussion raised some important issues with regard to BRT. The CTP analysis has identified a considerable amount of unmet transit needs in numerous corridors throughout Cobb County. Some of the needs are for increased or enhanced service along existing routes. Some of the needs are for service in corridors where we do not currently have existing service. And some of the needs are for better connectivity between routes. There are a lot of needs, and in order to meet those needs, there has to be money for startup costs and money for operating and maintenance costs. In answer to another stakeholder's question, not even my question, we were told that the CTP is basically a wish list. The CTP does try to identify capital costs to implement each of the items in the CTP, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. However, the CTP does not attempt to evaluate future operating and maintenance costs. Cobb Parkway BRT will provide a faster trip time for existing transit riders at an outrageously expensive cost to taxpayers. And there are alternatives that could provide a faster trip time for the same transit riders at a dramatically lower cost to taxpayers. But beyond that, if we obligate an additional $6 million of annual operating and maintenance costs every year just to luxurifying already existing transit service in just this one corridor, when and where is Cobb ever going to find even more money for operating and maintenance costs for other legitimate transit needs that we have in all these other corridors? When the CTP comes forward, you can direct changes. Many people would like for you to completely kill the BRT, and I will suggest a compromise. Move Cobb Connect BRT from the medium-term list to the long-term list, and instruct staff to stop work on this project until such time that the BOC instructs staff to resume working on it. Several of you stated in June and July that if BRT remained on the SPLOST, it would defeat the SPLOST. Conceding this point while continuing to enable BRT to move forward and get funded feels like Cobb is trying to shove BRT down our throats and make us pay for it, even though you know that the vast majority of voters oppose this project. Please consider the compromise. Move Cobb Connect BRT from the medium-term list to the long-term list and instruct staff to stop working on this project and stop moving it forward until such time that the Board of Commissioners changes that decision and instructs staff to resume working on it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Teresa Stendal.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Teresa Stendahl, and this is a letter to the Commission from our Lake Allatoona communities. It's interesting but appropriate that the corridor study conducted for the Lake Allatoona corridor is called a land use vulnerability analysis. While some of the proposed changes are meant to bring existing development into compliance, these changes are not minor changes for such an environmentally sensitive area. The most appropriate changes made to date were in 2004, when most of the area was changed to rural residential. We appreciate the initiative of Commissioner Gorham at that time in making those changes for the protection of our existing neighborhoods in Lake Allatoona, and it was approved unanimously by that board. Now multiple major changes are being proposed that nullifies that protection and the desire of the surrounding community, taking proposed development to a level never even imagined by most of us who chose to live here. With the exception of the Z164 rezoning, which allowed 984,000 square feet of commercial development, the area in 10 years has only been increased by 16 homes on the east side of Cobb Parkway and a McDonald's and a Mellow Mushroom on the west. None required rezoning. That's all in 10 years. To think that the corridor would not continue to evolve would be extremely naive. But to implement such major land use changes in this small corridor based on speculative development, both residential and commercial, for the benefit of perceived demand due to Lake Point sports in Emerson and projected growth in Paulding County, is an insult to all of us who have made life investments to preserve and protect this area. I know of no other small community in Cobb County that has been as diligent to be educated by our own commissioners, stay informed, and remain involved in the issues that concern not just us, but any development that could potentially impact our water supply. Throughout the many years of attending public meetings, keeping others informed, many of us individually and collectively have put our money with our words, hoping that those we elected to represent us would realize that our small neighborhoods and businesses are vital to what has been great about living in Cobb County. We believed then and now that necessary and responsible development can coexist with many of our rural lifestyle choices. One need not be sacrificed for the other. It is obvious that many of these proposed changes rob us of the very lifestyle we have worked so hard to preserve and protect. Once these changes are approved, there is no going back. There will never be a rezoning going forward that will have any validity for opposition. Cobb County, in adopting these land use changes, take away from us the very choice that we should all be able to exercise freely and without fear. It is even more egregious that our quality of life is being compromised for economic development benefiting other counties, and we are the price that's being paid. These proposed changes clearly conclude that our lifestyle choices are no longer about we the people, advocating that development should have to fit with us, not us be annihilated by development. Therefore, although it's a moot point now, we respectfully request that you listen to the people who live here, rather than implementing changes that tell us that you know what is best for us. You do not live here, we do, and no one knows the area better than we do. While changes have their place, there are some places that require no change, at least not today. Let the area evolve with time, with input from the people who call this area home. Then make land use changes as necessary, while still listening to the desires of the communities in Cobb County. Again, there is no need to mandate changes for the benefit of any one developer, an adjacent county, or hoped for economic development. Do not rob us of our choice to choose our lifestyle. We have invested dearly in both time and money to work with the county to help preserve and protect our water supply in our small neighborhoods. That is who we are, and that is who we wish to remain for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Bill Griffin.
A little disappointed in your guys' motion and seconding it. I mean, it is what it is. Thing about it is, you don't live where we do. You don't have to fight the traffic getting out of it. Come try it. I mean, if you think that is acceptable, and if you don't think it's going to get worse, you guys are totally wrong. Astounded. I mean, I'm surprised, not surprised, but astounded. The existing land sizes of the lots and stuff like this. Our lots and stuff have been grandfather claused. I hope that you guys, being how you pass this, at least make the new lots the same size as the smallest existing lot that is in the CP5 area. That's fair. That will not bring my property values down as long as they build reasonable houses. Even the drains, had gentlemen talk about, oh, everything on the east side of 41 drains off over into Allatoona. Everything on the west side, pretty much don't worry about. Oh, we have private lakes and ponds and stuff like this. Kids swim in, we fish, we eat fish out of this stuff. The more drainage that goes off over into these areas, the worse it's gonna be. We bought off out there because we didn't want to have neighbors where you hand a cup of sugar through the window off over to their window. It's the current, as far as the hotels and the motels, I mean, it's traffic is bad enough. I mean, please do the roads first. I mean, hey, go ahead and grant them the zoning you guys have, but don't grant them building permits until the roads are set up. As far as the runoffs and stuff like this out of the motels and stuff like it, hey, if we're worried, if it's not going to be a problem, dump it into the city sewer system or the county sewer system. Hey, the more concrete, the more you get in there. It'll save our rivers, it'll save our streams, it'll save our lakes. And that will also kind of regulate the amount of concrete that you're allowing in these areas. Try passing, I mean, this is Cobb County. Ackworth is in Cobb County. What does the city of Ackworth have to say about this? It directly affects them more than any of you guys. How many of you live in Ackworth? I mean, if you don't live in Ackworth, it's really not affecting you. I mean, you may get more tax dollars out of it, but it kind of makes me feel like my choice has been bought off by the big dollars. And that's pretty much about all I have to say. Other than I wish that you guys would have put a little more consideration in on the way it's affecting the people. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Nathan Bowen.
I really have nothing left to say either. Thank y'all for listening to me. I think Stephanie, I just met her tonight. She had a lot of good valid points. I wish I would have met her a long time ago in the process. All I got to say is when Ackworth is leveled and there's no trees and the preservation's gone and all this stuff is draining into our lakes and our ponds and Lake Ackworth and Lake Allatoona, and it's nothing but concrete, y'all come visit us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Last speaker is Judy Creasy.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. It takes us to tab 7. There's one item on the consent agenda, item 4, under engineering for transportation, that we are going to move to tab 8, item 3 in a regular agenda without objection from any of the commissioners. Is that correct? Are there any other requests concerning the items on the consent agenda before I bring forward a motion?
Yes, Chairman. Yesterday, we received an email from Michael Hughes with respect to item number 24, stating that department will be pulling that item and putting that item forward for, I believe, the public to participate in, and I just want to reiterate that for today.
Yeah, we got an update on that this afternoon. There's been some movement on that project, and we need to continue to move forward on it tonight, time-wise.
Okay, then what I would like to do then is make a request that items 21 and 24 be pulled from consent for discussion.
We'd like to, well, I have to object to that, so unless we have a motion and a second and a vote to move those to regular at this point.
Chairman,
Yes.
the rules provide that prior to voting on a consent agenda, any commissioner may withdraw an item from consent in order to vote on that item individually.
Okay, that's not what I was led to believe. Thank you. So items 21, Is that what you're suggesting?
Items 21 and 24, yes.
Okay, we'll take those up immediately after conclusion of
Okay.
the vote on the consent agenda item as presented. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda and authorize the execution of the necessary documents by the appropriate county person, and that is the revised consent agenda, which moves item 4 to tab 8, item 3, and it removes item 21 and 24 for discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Then we'll take up item 21. I'll present to item 21 with a motion to approve item 21 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments regarding item 21?
Yes, I would like for Jim Pearson, our finance director, to come forward and to provide some additional background information on this item.
Mr. Pearson, excuse me. Good evening.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I need to back up. And I need
Item 21 is the
Not
standing
21.
errors.
In fact, I made a mistake this evening. And I need to, since we voted on consent agenda, I meant to refer to item 20, not 21, for discussion. And I don't know if I can get some direction from the county attorney as to how to address that. They're related, but I don't have any issue with agenda item 21. It's actually with respect to agenda item 20.
Counselor, we're waiting for advice from you.
Yes, if you could give me a second, I'm consulting with the rules.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe so, and I'm sorry, Attorney Dance, there's some discussion here. I don't have my rules in front of me, but I'm of the thought if we have not voted on the next item, that we can go back and vote on the prior item again.
That's my recollection, but let me
Okay.
track it down.
I think that's it.
There is a section in the rules that provide for an issue to be brought back, and if in the same meeting, new information or a changed situation, and I believe a mistake would constitute that, make it appear that a different result might reflect the will of the board, any commissioner, regardless of the vote, may move to reconsider the vote. A motion to reconsider may be applied to a vote that was either affirmative or negative, and shall propose no specific change in the decision, but shall propose that the motion be reopened for discussion and another vote taken. So I believe that it would be,
Does that require a supermajority or no?
it requires a majority to adopt the
Majority,
motion to
okay.
reconsider.
If you want to present a.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the vote for adoption of the consent agenda as was presented with, I believe, removal of item number 4 and for
Or just-
individual consideration
okay,
of
we
items
just- right
21.
now-
I'm in the middle of making a motion.
I
don't
understand that,
believe
but
it's
I'm trying to
appropriate
explain
be-
to you that we're in the middle of making a motion to consider rescinding the motion.
Yes, and I'm just referring to what we're rescinding the vote for. I'm just clarifying that we were doing it for the prior action.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I have not completed the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to move to rescind our prior vote for approval of the consent agenda, which I was stating specifically had the adoption of all items excluding item number 4, and which had the individual removal of items 21 and 24.
Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Ott seconds it. Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. I'll make a revised motion concerning the consent agenda, that the motion to approve the revised consent agenda and authorize the execution of necessary documents by the appropriate county personnel, which includes to remove item 4 to tab 8, item 3, and to remove item 20 and 24 for individual conversation. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. We're now taking before us item 20. Mr. Pearson, I believe, been asked to provide a more detailed explanation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, Mr. Hankerson. This is an item that we bring forward every year at the end of our fiscal year when we have an idea of what the fund balance is going forward into the new fiscal year. This is how we have funded our capital improvement replacement plan, really going back to the 1990s for the operational capital items for the county, or excluding the SPLOST projects. These are the more of the smaller termed or deemed capital items. And what you have before you is an agenda item number 20 that is bringing forward a list of reserves. They can be broken down into 3 specific areas. Those that have been already approved by the board, such as the class and pay study, the priority-based budgeting. These are items that the board approved back in 2014 that have yet to be completed. So there's monies remaining that needs to be paid for these projects. And with our budget process, our general fund budget lapses at the end of the year, so these budgets have to be reestablished. And so this is a formal process to reestablish what the board has already affirmed for us to go forward with. Work is being done on the pay class study, the party-based budgeting, so we need to reestablish those budgets so that we can complete those projects. That's the first element of this agenda item. The second is, for the past several years with the fiscal challenges that we have faced, we have pulled out of the budget process the accountable equipment and the capital equipment. These are one-time expenditures that are normally in the operating budget, but at the direction of the county manager, we have pulled them out so as not to give those funds to the departments, but to wait and see how we finish the year to see if there are monies available for those expenditures. These have been thoroughly vetted by the county manager through the budget process. They have been reduced in some cases. In the example that you have here, or not the example, in the agenda item, you have $4.4 million for accountable equipment and capital items for the 15 budget process. One half of this is specific to public safety, which would include the sheriff's office and police. This is for body armor. It's for those things tasers, those things that are needed to equip the new officers that were approved in the budget process, the 40 officers that were approved last year through the board's action that was separate from the budget. So we have about $2.5 million specific to the sheriff's office and public safety. These are things that they agreed with our fiscal measures to put off until we knew where our fund balance was going to be. And then they'd become forward at the soonest possible time so they can move forward on these things. We also have other items within there that other departments have requested that have also been held on hold. Information Services has items. All the departments have items. Again, these are requested by the department. We send out a list of the departments asking them what their accountable needs are through the budget process, and they submit, and we ask them. We're going to set them aside. We also have in that list vehicle replacement. We usually budget $1.5 million of vehicles. We pulled those out of the budget process. In order for fleet to move forward with vehicles, we have to be able to have a budget in our financial system to place the order. So no vehicles can be ordered in our normal capital replacement program until we have a budget in place. Again, this was to try to keep the budgets in line, to make sure that we had funding in place, to make sure that we would use savings at the end of the year, if available, for these type of purchases. The third is additional requests that, again, go out to the departments. This would include, the one example is the credit card machine upgrade. There's a new requirement coming out that we have to have a credit card machine that has reads a tag or a code on a chip on the credit cards. This is a new requirement from the banking regulations that we have to have. Something that's new, and so it wasn't a part of the budget process. These are things that we brought forward to Mr. Hankerson. This was a finance requested item. Other departments request the same additional type items. The sheriff's office has hospital beds, food steamers, truck vaults, infirmary beds. Police has bulletproof vest replacement, license plate recognition system, public safety reward fund that we replenish every year through our reserves, tower site security for 800 megahertz. So these are things that have come forward as what has traditionally been a part of our process for doing capital replacements, capital improvements. It's to use the fund balance at the end of the year instead of budgeting it through the normal budget process. It's waiting until we know what our fund balance is, and this amounts to $3.256 million.
Thank you.
So that's really the three parts of this process and for the reserves and how it's come about.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Pearson?
Yes, I have multiple questions. For those who may be here today or watching from home who may not be aware of what fund balance means, can you please clarify?
Yes, ma'am. We have in our fund balance for the general fund, which is where most of these items come from, we have basically it's like a checking account. You have your revenues and expenditures, and you have what's left. Now, we have required reserves that we have a rainy day reserve of policy of 9%. We currently have 15% reserve, which is 15% of the annual adopted budget. That's for things that would come up that you're not aware of. It's good fiscal policy. Then we have other reserves that are in place that are legally required reserves for example, victim witness. Those monies that have a legislative intent that can only be spent for one particular purpose, and so we set those aside. So those aren't available for the regular operations of the county. And then we have a few accounting reserves that we have in place for prepaid expenditures. And whatever's left after those required reserves is available fund balance.
Okay.
That's what the board would have discretion to appropriate as through the wishes of the board. And that's typically what we've used going back really since the late 1990s for our capital improvement replacement plan.
Okay. Thank you, and I appreciate you sharing that. Perhaps not questions, but just maybe some observations. You stated that some of the items listed may to be reestablish a budget for items which have been pre-approved, of which two of those items on that list of, I believe about 8 or 9 fall into, which is the paying class study and the priority-based budgeting. Then there are some needs that came up during the budgeting process, which are included in that accountable equipment and capital items list. And then there are some additional requests that were not part of the budget requests. And so my concern was some of these things I was aware of from prior budget requests or votes that the BOC had approved in the past. Some of these I was not until as early as yesterday. And just find some of those things problematic. That certainly a lot of these are needs, and I'm not trying to impair any practical need that's from the county because these things have to be paid for. But when we see, for instance, some of us were unaware of how reserve funds would be used for the recent visit that we had, having some prior knowledge that we would be using this fund source for that visit would have been better to have that be prior knowledge than just seeing that show up in a budget item that we would all have to approve, and for even prior to that visit, with all of us having knowledge of how we were paying for that visit. I also have a concern that when I spoke to the agency that I'm assigned to and another agency had about what they had on this list of additional accountable equipment and capital items, they were unclear. And I know from speaking with them, I'm unclear if some of the things that they have brought to my attention as being needs are all reflected on this list. And the list that's being provided are all of the things that they deem as needs. Are they all on this list? Am I going to see that in another fund, in another reserve request? Because there's going to be, I think there's additional reserves outside of the amounts that are being considered here today. And that concerns me for them not to have knowledge of what's on this list, and when I speak with them, to not be confident that those needs are addressed from my prior discussion with them.
Could I respond to that real
Yeah,
quick?
Absolutely.
Please.
These lists come from the departments, and the accountable equipment and capital items are actually submitted by the departments through the budget process.
Okay.
Now, we have meetings with Mr. Hankerson, the county manager, through the budget process, and whatever's cut is communicated to him. And then if the departments have questions about that, they can come back with a separate meeting and appeal to him and make their justification for why they think those would go forward. But the accountable equipment and capital items comes from the department, and it's vetted through Mr. Hankerson. The additional accountable equipment also comes from the departments. We don't generate that list ourselves, and that is communicated back to them as well as to what's on this list. So I'm a little bit unclear. If there's a communication problem for my staff, I'll address that.
Okay.
But again, it is generated from the elected officials and departments that.
Well, just from the short amount of time to actually get some clarification on this item, and for me to do to get some background information, it would have been appreciated to have a little bit more time to vet that through than having to have that discussion now, just so again I can have some understanding of what's here. Because what I would like to know, is this the last reserve request for this year? Or should we expect for departments to see additional funds and for them to make those other requests out of this fund source?
Well, this board, certainly there's additional fund balance that's available. So if something came up that the board wished to move forward with, you could always bring that forward.
Okay.
That would be from elected official or department head, agency head, that would come to Mr. Hankerson, the chairman of this board, and justify the reason that something would have to come forward.
Okay.
That, again, is something that y'all would have to consider on a case-by-case basis.
Are you, if I may,
Sure.
are you referring to the end of the calendar year or the fiscal year?
Well, this is fiscal year. Now, I can tell you there is another item that will come forward, but this is more for matching of funds, that we, again, have had a great collection year with our tax collections. We budget 95%, and right now we're over 97%. We have that other 5% budgeted because we split our tax collections into 2 fiscal years. We're going to move that 2% through a request, once we get the final number, to the FY15 budget, so it matches the expenditures that was meant to offset. But that's just more of it's not changing the revenues, it's just changing the period in which we're going to recognize those revenues to offset expenditures.
Okay.
And that's, again, we're restricted by law on what we can, how we can show those revenues in each fiscal year.
Okay. And I'll just make an overall general observation, and this is to be taken into account whenever we have this come before us again, is that I did have the opportunity to sit down with you and again to get some more understanding of this agenda item. When I spoke with another person on the board, they shared that they had, I don't know, they shared 6 or 12 hours to go through this item so that they understood. At the end of the day, all of us are decision makers on this item.
Absolutely.
And this is a very dense agenda item that has a lot of background information that is not clear by the information provided. And with such an item like this being brought forward in the future, I would like to have some more information prior to being asked to make a vote on it from when we get the agenda book.
Well, if I can comment too, I mean, this is the county manager's agenda book. It's not the commissioner's, it's the county manager's agenda book. And for 20 years, our county has enjoyed a very conservative, fiscally strong policy and procedure reputation, not only in the industry, but for the AAA ratings we get for 18 years in a row now from the rating agencies. That AAA is put in place because not only because of economic conditions and leadership, but because of the processes and procedures and the protocol we use to evaluate and allocate our funds and resources associated with those priorities brought forward by staff. So the evaluation of our processes and procedures is one that's very, very clearly articulated, very clearly followed, and has been. And it's under the leadership of the county manager that for the last 20 years, we've had the smallest budget. We've had the lowest number of people. We've had enjoyed just an incredible reputation in the whole entire country for what we do and how we do it. Our job as administrators, our job as the commissioners are to be policy makers, policy deciders, and then we're to oversee and turn the operation and the delegation of the responsibility for execution of the budget, once we approve it, to the county manager. And quite frankly, I see the scrutiny to this level about an agenda item dealing with budgets that have been done this way for 20 years, and you approved the same type of agenda item last year. I see that as a complete insult to the county manager. I see it as a lack of confidence in the county manager and his work and his ability. And quite frankly, if there's a trust issue, if there's a confidence issue with his judgment and the way he goes about bringing his agenda items forward, I wish that the commissioner would make time to meet with him when he makes himself available 24/7, 365, to meet with any commissioner, anytime, anywhere, to talk about any agenda item, no matter when and how it's presented, and talk to that leadership issue that he's evidently falling down on in terms of his ability to manage this. And I would just, we've all had this book this is my 12th one of these that I've approved. I know it comes every year. I'm prepared for it every year. I know that in June we'll get the digest. In August, September, we'll approve the budget. In November, December, we'll get the fund balance allocation. You all have the monthly budget meetings, which you're allowed to talk to the CFO and the department about any allocations, proposed allocations. To suggest that you didn't have enough time to scrutinize this is an insult to the county manager and the staff, and I need to have that publicly recognized. We have a motion and we have a second. Are there any other comments?
Definitely another comment, because I would like to respond, because I think that some comments were made that I don't think are accurate reflection of me having an inquiry about an agenda item. Anytime there is an agenda item that is brought forward where there is a question, any commissioner has the opportunity to provide question, and there have been items brought forward to us that have been less complex, that have been pulled for further discussion. So to think that because I am questioning an item which has significant detail, or have requested to discuss an item which has significant detail, all of a sudden shows disrespect for a staff person or multiple staff persons would fly in the face of those other items, which I have never heard the chairman say show disrespect to any of those staff persons associated with that item. And I think that is an unfair representation of my inquiry today. I'd also like to share that my inquiry today has nothing to do with this county's AAA rating, which all of us hold dear and esteem, and which of course has been achieved through the leadership of our county manager, your leadership, Jim Pearson, the chairman's leadership, and other leaders here in Cobb County. And to think that an inquiry about a budgetary item goes to disrespecting or not appreciating the value of that AAA rating is, again, I think, an inaccurate perception or reflection of my inquiry today over one agenda item.
Okay,
I would also like to share, I was elected in 2012. Last year was my first year. I do not have the level of experience that the chairman has being here for 12 years, which I think is to be respected. So if it will behoove me to be a little bit more savvy or a little bit more knowledgeable, or to want more information in my second year in office and I would have my first, I think that would be expected from someone as they gain information by serving here on this board. And again, I will say that I find that the chairman's representation of me and my inquiry today is inaccurate and is a grossly inaccurate reflection of my inquiry.
My point is simply this, Commissioner. If you have questions, we've had this agenda book since Thursday. We've had ample time for questions. The county manager's made himself available.
And I have made myself available too.
Well,
I have made myself available too.
I respectfully disrespect.
You tried to get a hold of me today after I made a commitment here today.
Just a minute, please. I wasn't finished talking.
No, but again, you want to defame me publicly.
No.
So I will. No, yes, you do. So I will speak to that. If we know for weeks in advance that there is an agenda item like this being brought forward, there has been many times where staff has brought to the attention of the commissioners items which may cause question, items which may have significant detail. They have brought that forward prior to even putting it in the agenda book. So to ask me, because I have a question about something, to be made available within less than 24 hours after I've made plans. No, I made myself fully available on Monday for anybody to come talk to me, of which persons who knew that I had questions about this item came and spoke to me about it. Now, for those who want to hunt me down with for today, even less than 24 hours, to me, there has been much more time provided to do that. And I'm not going to be hunting down people for information which they could have provided to me weeks in advance.
Well, I have to take that in consideration since your email came after Monday when you were available. But so here we go. We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any other comments? Call the question.
There's a question here as to whether or not the clerk has recorded a motion and a second on this item.
I make a motion that we approve item 20 as presented. I thought I already did that.
Would you like me to read the recommendation?
The Board of Commissioners approved county reserves as recommended, authorize the appropriation of the approved reserve funds into the FY15 budget, and further authorize the corresponding budget transactions. That'll be my motion. There's a second by Commissioner Ott. Any comments? Call the question. The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Cupid in opposition. That takes us to another item. Let's discuss item 24. And just to be clear, I'm going to make a motion, just like I thought I did the other one, for item 24. I'm going to bring forward a motion on item 24 as follows, as soon as I find it. As it relates to item 24, bring a motion forward, the Board of Commissioners amend program years 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009 annual action plans to reallocate unexpected home investment partnership program funds to Must Ministries authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Second.
There's multiple seconds. Any comments?
Yes,
Discussion.
for discussion.
Pardon me?
Discussion.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
Chairman, go ahead, Chairman.
Yes, it has come to my attention, after talking with the director of Must Ministries, that they requested from CDBG additional funds, and that there are folks that have, under the TBRA assistance program, will be displaced from their homes without this funding. But I do, however, I do support the motion and for approving this. However, I would like to ask the Mr. Hughes, Michael Hughes, and the county manager to look into forming a policy for this in the future of how these funds, surplus funds, are allocated, to give all the agencies that are eligible for this an opportunity to submit an application for review and recommendation to come back to this board before final approval.
Yes, ma'am.
In the future.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I would like to
Commissioner Cooper.
have, Michael Hughes address the board, please. Yes. Mr. Hughes, can you share with the board and with the public what you provided to us yesterday via email regarding this agenda item?
It was an email at the direction of the chairman suggesting that we pull this item pending the opportunity to advertise the availability of these funds, which means basically we would accept applications, staff would evaluate those applications, and then come back to this board with a preliminary recommendation of allocating those funds.
What has changed between yesterday and today?
I believe there's been additional information that's been provided with respect to client needs, that the organization was going to receive these funds. I think some commitments that had been made, and I think Commissioner Burrow's comments sort of describe the situation in terms of providing some real assistance and utility assistance for individuals that may not have a place to live come December.
So you're saying a commitment was made to obtain funds that should be approved by the BOC without the BOC approving those funds?
It sounds that way, Commissioner.
It does, if I may interject, but in my conversation, I was told that the CDBG did tell them that it did have to go through the formality of approval tonight.
Correct.
So, but I don't want to say, they did say it had to be confirmed.
Correct.
Which is what we're trying to accomplish here tonight. So it hasn't been committed, but if it doesn't get approved, there are families that will be affected and be displaced by the end of December.
Sure, Commissioner Knott.
I think one of the things that's to keep in mind, and I think that we're trying to kind of confuse, we've had the discussion in the past when the initial CDBG allocations are done. We have the public hearings for them. They put in applications, they're reviewed, and it's determined how much money. These monies, and I think that it's telling, with it being 2006, 7, 8, 9 monies, they're monies that have not been spent. Many times the federal government requires that they be spent by certain times, other times they don't. Obviously, these do not. But what happens is all these different groups that are participating in the CDBG programs at times throughout the year come to CDBG with needs. And it is my understanding that this particular time and what we're looking at, Must Ministries came and said that they had a need. And so what CDBG office did was look to see if there were any available funds that could satisfy that need. And they when we talk about a commitment, it isn't that they committed the money, because they were very clear in the fact that they couldn't commit the money, but they said, well, we have these monies available in these various funds that could satisfy the immediate need that you have, and we will bring it forward to the board on the agenda item that we have here to satisfy a need that has been identified and brought to CDBG and now is being brought to the board.
Yeah.
Does it go through an application process? No, because not every time does every organization that gets money from CDBG have an immediate need, as Must Ministries indicated this time. So I think that what I see is that the CDBG program office has responded to a need request from one of its, if you want to say, member organizations to try to keep people in their homes.
And may I just make it a little bit more clear? That need is to provide rental assistance to low and moderate income Cobb households.
That is correct.
And that is the need that's there.
And not only that.
This is to extend the lease of
But-
those people
Right.
that are already in place.
Not only that, when the application was made to CDBG, they recognized and advised all that the amendment is classified as substantial, warrants a public review meeting and a public comment period. Public notice was published on October 3rd, 2014, commencing a public comment period. The public comment period ended on Monday, November 3rd, a full 30 days. A public review meeting was held on Wednesday, November 5th. No public comments were received during that period. So this is, by definition, this has been advertised and for 30 days had a public comment period.
Please clarify.
Yeah, the amendment to the annual action plan has been advertised.
Right.
I think what we can do is possibly advertise the availability of funds and actually receive applications. That's the difference. But we followed our process.
I understand. But if I'm in this business,
correct,
and I see a public advertising about a particular issue, I can comment on it, right?
Right.
I would just like to add that this is not the first time that we've had additional funds left over from a particular type of fund through the CDBG program. What I wanted to address with this particular item, and which it seemed as if CDBG staff and Mr. Hughes were in agreement with yesterday, which is why I'm very displeased to see this come before us right now after you stated it was being pulled, is that we do not offer a general public notice and hearing to let all eligible agencies know when they have these leftover funds. While there might be some agencies that are extremely familiar with this process, that have the savvy to come back and ask for specific funds, not all eligible nonprofits that provide services, even in this policy arena, may not know that they can come back to the CDBG program office and make this type of requests. I particularly have received inquiry from agencies within the district that also provide similar service in this arena who have expressed either interest, inquiry, or dissatisfaction with the level of funds that they get through this. So when I saw this item, I did not know what was the process that we determined this particular program area, this particular nonprofit, in light of my knowledge of other nonprofits that work in the specific area and provide the same service. I also know that with respect to CDBG programs, it is a very broad program that has a lot of policy areas. So while we may know that this particular agency has a certain policy need, there are other policy areas of which there have also been requests made. So what is the direction that would say we prioritize this agency and this particular policy without opening up consideration for other policy areas and for other organizations? What we had discussed yesterday I thought was very reasonable and a very practical consideration was for us to say that we will pull this item, have a public hearing, and provide opportunity for all agencies that may have similar requests to be given equal opportunity to be able to have access to these funds. While there may be some practical impact to that today, which I was just made aware of today, which I have no issue with, just in the future, even for today, I just feel whenever we have leftover funds, there should be a public hearing with public notice for any eligible organization to have the opportunity to access those funds. And it would have, I think, been appreciated to have received some correspondence or to be alerted, if I had not responded to you, that a decision that was made with respect to an agenda item yesterday had changed prior to this meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 4-1, Commissioner Cupid in opposition. That takes us to tab 8, Transportation Director DeMassimo.
Mr. Chairman and Board, I'm before you to request that we authorize an adjustment to the streetlight district service charge to establish a policy of the streetlight district fund and to achieve a sustainable fund balance reserve equal to 10% of most recent adoption. The streetlight program was adopted in 1979, and then in 1987, I believe, there was a $3.50 service charge, monthly service charge established, in which that rate has not changed since that. On October the 26th, 2010, the board established a special revenue fund to segregate the revenue from and expenditures accounting to the streetlight district to ensure that these funds collected are accountable for within the streetlight district funds. In that program, the streetlight, the fees from the utility providers represents about 94% of that 350, and then you got indirect costs at 1.8%, and you got the water bill and administrative charge. Also, in this year, we will end up about $69,000 in this year short. It's projected that we would go over 100,000 for this year coming. And also, we've been put on notice that one of the service providers, which went up about 16%, it added about $400,000 to that utility cost. We've been put on notice that they are possibly considering another 30% increase. And if you know, to your attention, that $400,000 as personnel costs and in totality is $177,334. So if there's another cost, with that being 16%, if they go up to another 30%, we're gonna have to take another look at that. In addition to that, we are talking about recommending that you establish a policy for a fund balance reserve equal to 10%, but also try to achieve that in 3 years. And if you approve this, this will keep this fund balanced, and we will come back to the board and reevaluate it after another full year. This rate adjustment proposal originally prepared for the board on October the 14th, but was held for further analysis. On November the 14th, board meeting, the chairman directed county manager to consult with each district commissioner individually to develop a proposal with majority support. This proposal incorporates the input from that process. With that, Mr. Chairman, I recommend the Board of Commissioners authorize a rate adjustment from $3.50 to $4 a month for the streetlight district service charge. Establish a policy for the streetlight fund to achieve within 3 years and sustain thereafter a fund balance reserve equal to 10% of its most recent adopted budget, and to conduct analysis at the end of 2015 to provide back to the board to determine if the $4 rate should be continued.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'll bring that forward in a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorham.
this has been about a 2.5-year process. I have to thank Commissioner Ott and former Commissioner Woody Thompson, who came forward with the proposal to separate this fund from the general fund. And I have to say, initially I was not in favor of it. I had my druthers about it, but after internal audit had recommended that we do separate the fund, and then I came to the realization that those who utilize the service will be those who pay for the service. When it's in the general fund, we utilize all taxpayers' revenue to subsidize this fund. So from those standpoints, it makes a lot of sense to have a separate fund. Then we're hit with a huge increase in the cost of electricity, and we possibly could see another increase in the electricity. I know there's been a lot of discussion about amongst this board here, the proper actions to take. We've put it on the back burner since October. We're now in a crunch time. There is a practical reason for us to act on this now. We're in a very short time frame in which to handle the billing and the practicality of initiating a rate increase if indeed the board votes for it. So we need to do that. I know there was discussion about doing an RFP to contract it out. All indicators for that show that the savings, if even there is a company that would do it, would not be substantial. The reason being is because 94% of the cost of this fund is in energy. Very small percentage is in indirect costs regarding that. And besides, Cobb County has a model to which we plug in the issue at hand to see whether or not contracting it out would make any sense. And we generally look at something that's a temporary or semi-temporary project that requires manpower for a defined period of time. And an example of that would be the SPLOST management program, to which this doesn't fit those parameters. Or we look at something that's very labor-intensive functions, such as meter reading, and this does not fit that parameter. Plus, another area where we wouldn't realize savings is that we build this through the water system. And to have a third party come in and being involved in our billing system would not be very practical. And I know there's different opinions about this, but the last thing that this commissioner wants to do is go back and subsidize this independent fund with general funds until we decide what action we want to take. So I very much support this agenda item for all the reasons that I've stated, and it's time to stop using this and playing ping pong with this issue, take ownership of it, and if indeed we all believe it should be a separate fund, then we need to have it as a separate fund.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrow.
Can I make a comment?
Go to Commissioner Burrow first. I heard her second.
All right, well, I was gonna kind of add to what Commissioner Gorham said, that's all.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna
Wait,
ask if
Commissioner.
you would, kind of make changes to your amendment, or to your motion, that instead of waiting until, I believe that it says the end of 2015?
Yes, sir, calendar year.
Yes, that you direct the county manager to do two things. Number one, look at all the non-utility costs to see if there are any cost savings that can be realized. And number two, to have discussions and negotiations with both of the utility providers, because I believe that there's two. Is that correct?
That's 3 or 4,
Okay,
but
well,
it's
yeah.
mainly with 2, Georgia
Right.
Power and EMC. Yes.
To sit down and negotiate, because my understanding is right now that the utility cost is not based on usage, it's based on just an amount. And so what I would ask is that you amend it to direct the county manager to look at those two items over the next 6 months and come back to the board prior to the start of the budget process when we do the amendments or looking at the next fiscal year budget. Because if we wait till the end of 15, we will have already looked at the budget and we will miss the opportunity to evaluate if there are any additional cost savings that can be made. Because if indeed there are not, and we get a utility increase of the magnitude that the county manager is talking about, the budget is going to come up short. So what I would ask is that you amend it to direct him to come back in 6 months on those two items, basically the two items, the non-utility expenses and then number two would be the utility expenses, but do it in 6 months' time so that we have an ample time prior to the budget process for next year to evaluate this, the fund.
Might I make a comment on Commissioner Ott's comment? I agree with you about the 6 months' time, but I thought that we already looked at the non-utility costs in our Cobb County Streetlight Program Management Privatization Proposal Analysis and Recommendation. Did not this study look at the non-utility costs in a very thorough and in-depth manner?
I would like I said, I would just like to look at the entire program over this next 6 months to make sure that prior to going into the budget process for 16, that we've considered all things, because if the county manager is saying that I believe you said it was a 15% increase, was a $400,000 expense?
16%.
16% was a $400,000 expense, and now you've gotten notice from one utility provider that a 30% increase, that's considerable, that's upwards of about $800,000. So I just think that we need to look at the entire thing.
The entire thing. Again, you broke it down to power costs and non-utility or non-power costs. And
well, those, my understanding, is to be the only two components of the plan.
Absolutely, but did we not look at it in this analysis? Why, I understand, don't leave any stone unturned, but I don't think we need a separate recommendation to cover that. I think the 6 months to review the utility costs, and I don't think we need to go back to another analysis.
Let me hear from Commissioner Burrow.
Okay. I had some comments prepared, but I'll kind of cut it short because I think we've been through everything. I do agree that it should stay a separate fund and for accountability, and also not to be subsidized by the general fund as it was in the past, but it does need to be self-sustaining. And there has not been an increase since 1987, although to the consumer, although we have incurred and absorbed increases from the utilities. So I definitely think we need to sit down and meet with them to see what we can negotiate as far as our rates and a reduction. And I do agree with Commissioner Ott that it should be within the next 6 months prior to the budget process. And I will go a step further and volunteer to go with you and work with them as well.
Any other comments? All right, let me revise my recommendation for motion as follows. The Board of Commissioners...
Mr. Chairman, as you consider revising your commission, would you make it inclusive that we make it effective January 1 if that's part of it? So.
The Board of Commissioners authorize a rate adjustment for effective January 1, 2015 from $3.50 to $4 per month for the Streetlight District service charge. Establish a policy for the Streetlight District Fund to achieve within 3 years and sustain thereafter a fund balance reserve equal to 10% of its most recent annual adopted budget. And for the county manager to conduct and present an analysis of all costs to be presented to the boards for the board's consideration prior to FY16 budget presentation, FY16 budget, and to provide to the board and to determine if the $4 rate should be continued within that presentation. That'd be my motion. So basically what I'm saying is you're gonna come back as part of the budget presentation with an analysis of everything to a degree.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second. Is there any comments? Call the motion. Passes 5-0. So item 2, let's see, Director DeMassimo.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, County Manager, to approve a utility relocation agreement with Georgia Power Company for preliminary engineering and relocation of facilities on Six Flags Drive. This is an approved roadway safety and operational improvements project in the 2011 SPLOST Transportation Improvements Program. And we request that the Board of Commissioners approve a utility relocation agreement with Georgia Power Company in a form substantially similar to the attached and as approved by the County Attorney's Office in an amount not to exceed $39,133 for preliminary engineering and relocation of facilities on Six Flags Drive.
Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, motion to approve.
Second.
Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Item 3, please.
To authorize the advertisement for and conduct of a public hearing prior to expending $100,000 or more to perform engineering services for the I-285 pedestrian bridge and authorize the issuance of a request for proposals. The I-285 pedestrian bridge will allow pedestrian traffic access over I-285 from the Galleria Office Park to SunTrust Park and the mixed-use development on the north side of I-285. In accordance with the State of Georgia Code, the Board of Commissioners is required to conduct a public hearing prior to expending funds of $100,000 or more to employ an independent consulting firm to conduct an independent study or survey, and we anticipate awarding of this contract could exceed that amount and therefore request the Board's authorization. As discussed prior to today's meeting, this RFP will not be issued until after the public hearing is held and public input received, considered, and incorporated as appropriate. We now request the Board of Commissioners authorize the advertisement for and conduct of a public hearing prior to expending $100,000 or more to perform engineering design services for the I-285 pedestrian bridge and authorize the issuance of a request for proposals utilizing Selection Process 1 competitive negotiations.
So Commissioner Ott, you have the distinct pleasure of having the SunTrust Park built in your district. Is it your desire to have every item that comes forward on the park be turned over to you, or can I make a motion, or how would you like to do this?
I'll make the motion. I don't have a problem with making a motion on this one if you want.
Go ahead.
You know, there's been a lot of discussion about cost and who's going to pay for it and all that. As I've said in the past, the board cannot decide how something's going to be paid for, who's going to pay for it, or anything like that until we know what is going to happen or what it's going to look like. So I think that this is an appropriate step, and I'll make a motion to approve item number 3.
And I'll second that motion. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, sir. So let's move on to tab number 9, our second public comment.
No speakers.
Thank you. Let's move on to tab number 10, appointments. First item, Commissioner Ott.
Make a motion to reappoint Abby Schiffman to the Public Library Board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Item 2 is Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, sir. I have several since this is for a new term, and I will start. First of all, these are all effective January 1/15, but I'm trying to split them up so that I don't have them all at one meeting. I would like to reappoint Tanya Boga, David Lewis, and James Dodd to the Community Relations Council. I would like to appoint Chuck Casto, Frank Wigington, and Joe Ellen Smith to the 1% SPLOST Oversight Committee. I would like to appoint Jack Siegel, Vic Knight, and Nick Fogarty to the Keep Cobb Beautiful Board. I would like to reappoint Jack Demarest to the Board of Tax Assessors. I would like to reappoint Rose Wing to the Historic Preservation Commission. I would like to reappoint Helga Hong to the Cemetery Preservation Commission. And I would like to appoint a new appointment, Eric Hill, to the Transit System Advisory Board. And he will replace long-time serving member David Hong. And I'd like to thank David for his service to this board, for his many years of service to many boards. And then I'd also like to reappoint John Anderson to the Transit Board.
Thank you. I'll second your motion. This is a board-approved recommendation. Any comments? Call the question. Board vote is 5-0.
And if I may, I would like
Sure.
to thank everyone that was reappointed in this segment for their service over the years.
Thank you. Tab 11,
Public address, Commissioners' public address, Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday, and also safe travels, and just, as always, keep an eye on the weather to make sure that you travel safely.
Spoken like a true pilot. Commissioner Gorham.
Yes, again, just to restate, the business outreach for the SunTrust Park project will take place on December the 3rd at the Powder Springs Wellness Center, actually the Wellness Center on Powder Springs from 6 to 8 p.m. So those who are interested in possible business concerning the new baseball stadium, you're welcome to come.
Thank you. Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving. We certainly have much to be thankful for. I'm thankful that you continue to work with me as we try to improve the district, and appreciate all of your support this year. Would like to share that this week we kicked off the Holiday in the Park at Six Flags Park, where typically we have a summer or spring and summer season. They are now extending to January 4th, and the park is actually very well lit. It looks like a Christmas a bonanza out there. And you can visit the park this week every day except for Thursday, and this should be a warmer week than most over the winter, and I would encourage you to head out there with your family if you have that opportunity. I would also like to bring to your attention that you have the opportunity to provide input into the CDBG program, which we discussed today during the consent agenda. The CDBG program is a community development block grant program which provides funding to primarily serve low to moderate income residents. There is an online opportunity for you to provide feedback in the strategy of that program. I would read that URL to you online, but what I would encourage you to do rather is to sign up for my newsletter at cobbcounty.org/Cupid, and there you'll receive my newsletter and receive that link directly where you can provide your input, which will provide policy direction and how those program funds are spent over the next 5 years. I do want to make sure that I address prior discussion and share that I want to recognize Must Ministries is a valued organization to Cobb County. And my concern about agenda item 24, which gave additional funds to that organization, I do not want that to take anything away from my appreciation for what that organization does for many who are here in Cobb County. What I want to emphasize is that we have many service providers that also provide a great service to Cobb County residents. And I believe that the opportunity for all of them to be able to access resources to provide that service should be fair and open to all. And having a public notice process when we have additional funds for those organizations is something that I will continue to push, and I hope that the Community Development Block Grant staff, in addition to our economic development staff, will make sure that that's a priority as we have additional funds moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burrow.
Last week, I had the opportunity to attend several events with our Korean delegation dignitaries, and it was a great time, and I'm very encouraged by continuing our sister city relationship, and thank them all for their gifts and appreciation. I also attended the GIS Day at the Powder Springs Station, and we're very fortunate in this county to have such a talented group of individuals in our GIS department, and the technology and the information that they provide is just amazing of what they can do. So if you didn't have an opportunity, maybe next year it'll be even bigger and better. I'd also like to say congratulations and best wishes to Laney Ship and Mary Lou Stevens as they both retire from the Town Center area CID staff. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with them just in my past 4 years here. They've done an excellent job, and it's a great public-private partnership that we share. On a sad note, last week, we lost a wonderful member of this community in District 3. Ernie Ruda passed away. He is, for over 20 years, he and his wife Lori have maintained the medians and ramps at Bells Ferry and 575. They're a long-time Adopt a Mile volunteer and KCB volunteers. So our thoughts and prayers are with his wife Lori and their family. Also, I have a few announcements, appointment announcements that don't require BOC approval. And these two are effective January 1, 2015. I am reappointing Christy Trombetti to the Planning Commission Board and appointing her to replace David Poteet on the BZA Board. And I would like to publicly thank David for his service on the BZA Board. He's done an outstanding job, and we're going to miss him. And Christy will step in as she has past experience on both boards. I'd also like to reappoint Joy Evilsizer to the Animal Control Board, and a new appointment in conjunction with District 1 that Commissioner Gorham and Commissioner-elect Weatherford have also concurred with, to appoint Fran Jackson in the shared position for Districts 1 and 3 to the Animal Control Board. And she will replace Tricia Clements, and I'd like to publicly thank Tricia for her dedication and service to the Animal Control Board. I'd also like to reappoint Barry Abernathy to the Heating and Air Conditioning Advisory Board and Jordan Ball to the Plumbing Advisory Board, and both of those are renewals. And just a reminder that the offices are closed Thursday and Friday, and wish everyone a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. I'm done.
Thank you very much. In all the discussion that occurred tonight for a variety of different issues from different perspective, we approved an item in our consent agenda tonight related to Cobb County's water system schedule rates, changes, and fees. Steve, will you come here for a minute, please? Almost annually, you get the Ross, this is where you need to be rolling the tape, okay? There, Ross, turn it on. Okay, it's on. Steve, can you tell me about what exactly is to approve the Cobb County Water System Schedule of Rates, Charges, and Fees as it applies to the 2015 rates?
Yes, sir. We have approved a new rate schedule tonight. The only changes in the rate schedule from last year's rate schedule are reductions in the rates that we currently charge for water and sewer services to residents of the incorporated cities within the county. This is to recognize that the county has stormwater responsibilities in unincorporated Cobb County that are not shared by residents of those cities. So this is an effort to try to equalize our rates with respect to that issue.
And what about the rate for water, clean water and dirty water?
Those rates are staying the same as they were last year.
The rates are staying the same. Ross, did you see that? And how many years in a row is this that we've maintained those rates?
I believe this is the third year in a row.
That's the third year, Ross. More than 11, okay? Steve, thank you. I thought that was worth noting. Ricky, front page? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Mr. Hankerson?
Sir?
Any comments?
No, sir.
I would like to remind the folks here and at home that Thanksgiving was initially brought up by George Washington to give thanks and due appreciation of God and the blessings that he provided, he and his family and his nation and his folks. And then Abraham Lincoln, of course, one of the greatest, solidified that date as well, to give thanks to God for the providence and for the blessings we have. I hope that each person remembers that at one point during the day on Thanksgiving
quite frankly, I think we need to do it every day. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.